of course, a big headline that we're following today and likely will be throughout the evening. An impending government shutdown as we're just hours away from that deadline for lawmakers to reach a deal and get a spending plan passed. We've got kind of a stalemate, though, that we've been seeing up until this point between Republicans and Democrats. So wanted to bring in some more insight about the situation at hand here. We have political science professor Stephen Green joining us from NC State. Thank you so much, Mr. Green, for your time here. Tell us a bit about, I guess, what you're watching here, this back and forth that we're seeing between Democrats and Republicans, and what you're seeing as kind of the main takeaways as each party's talking points for this stalemate, if you will.
Well, with a stalemate like this, it's really a media game, and which side can win that media game of placing blame successfully on the other side. And for the Republicans, they are saying, look, we just want to keep the government open, doing what we're doing. And it's the Democrats who are in the process of trying to stop that. For Democrats, their message is, look, we just want to make sure that everybody is able to afford health care, and we are going to make sure we can extend that. And if the Republicans can't agree to that and bargain in good faith, then they are the ones responsible for shutting down the government. So they're both making arguments about that that it is the other one's fault, and it kind of depends on who's able to win that argument with the public.
Yeah, I mean, you just, in your words there, just characterized it as kind of like a media game. And I mean, the way that we're seeing this trending, I mean, every single, indication, up until today, starting with that, meeting yesterday with the president and congressional leaders, Vice President J.D. Vance coming out of that saying it was pretty likely that a government shutdown would take place based on what he was seeing between the two parties. At this point, it does seem like this is going to happen. And so it's kind of the political parties, each one trying to say, well, it's not our fault, it's the other guys. What will the actual consequences be of a government shutdown should this happen?
So I was going to say we've got some experience with these, more than we should, honestly. But, the truth is, at least in the short term, most of us will be able to live our lives as we have been living them. The government has the power to designate all sorts of federal workers, for example, those running air traffic control, those delivering in the mail, as essential, those in for defense and law enforcement as essential workers. So a lot of that really important business keeps going on. They will keep on mailing out Social Security checks. Veterans will be able to still get veterans health care. So the fact that they recognize these core aspects of government needs to keep functioning, at least in the short term, means that most people really don't feel it very directly.
I mean, there are some elements, though, for folks, I guess, maybe to keep in mind the fact that it does sound like some people would be working without pay. And then there's the other looming narrative, which we've been hearing from the Trump administration, the fact that this could be used to enact layoffs.
Right.
What are you, I guess, kind of seeing on that storyline?
So certainly, yeah, and I should have mentioned that a lot of federal workers, some will be furloughed, others will not get their pay and be expected to work. It's just that's, to be fair, a fairly small portion of the public. Whether Donald Trump uses this as an excuse to fire federal workers, it's kind of hard to see how that's the Democrats' fault. If Donald Trump says, I'm firing federal workers permanently, that's on Donald Trump and Republicans. I don't think that changes the larger political dynamic all that much. We've already seen months ago with DOJ that this administration is very willing to fire all sorts of federal workers. Again, for those particular individuals, this could have a really big impact, but I'm not sure how genuinely related to the shutdown it actually is.
I am, kind of curious to dig in on a point that you made just a few moments ago. I mean, you pointed out the fact that we've, at this point, had quite a bit of experience in recent history dealing with these stalemates, and we've had in recent years government shutdowns happen, and so we kind of know what that looks like in practice, and we also know what it looks like, as they try to bargain up to the very end and inevitably in some cases have passed a spending plan that's been pretty short term. How unusual is it to kind of see the can being kicked down the road? I would say so frequently within a certain period of time.
Is that my computer doing that? I am so sorry. My computer just started making music. It's done.
No worries. We're actually not hearing anything on our end.
Okay, great. Something happened. I
It's okay.
apologize. Anyway,
Okay, no,
please,
we deal
please
with
continue your question.
technology in so many different ways, so we know how funky it can be. So,
Okay, sorry.
no worries at all. I guess to kind of recap my question for you, I mean, we've had a lot of precedent seeing stalemates over government shutdowns, and actual shutdowns actually happen in recent years. You kind of made the point a few moments ago how we've been seeing this kind of maybe more than we should. I mean, what is what we're seeing right now? Like how does that compare to how often we might see this, in an earlier period of time in American history?
I mean, it speaks to how polarized we are right now. The inability of the parties to agree on some level on some of the most basic aspects of government. And we're just seeing them honestly play a game of chicken. And like I said, it's about who's going to be blamed more. And they're both, I think, willing to take a chance under the assumption that the other side will be blamed more. I was honestly just having a discussion with some colleagues earlier today in which we absolutely could not agree on which side would be blamed more, which I think means that both sides convince themselves the other side is going to be blamed. And then we'll just see what happens, how the media coverage evolves, what seems to happen in public opinion polling. But I think both sides feel like either I think Republicans feel like they have the upper hand, and I think on some level Democrats feel like they have to do this. That if they don't show some fight against the Trump administration, their base, who is already dissatisfied with them, will be just completely frustrated in ways that will harm them politically.
Now, I mean, to dig into the Democrats' stance, because I think we've heard this kind of come up before when the one big beautiful bill was being discussed. The concept of health care. What is it specifically that they want, and if they get it, how impactful would that be potentially to Americans?
Well, under the Biden, so a lot of people buy their healthcare insurance on these healthcare marketplaces, the so-called Obamacare plans. And to help people be able to afford that, the government offers subsidies to do that. And under the Biden administration, the extent of those subsidies, the dollar value of those subsidies was increased to make healthcare literally more affordable for millions of Americans. And the Trump administration has proposed getting rid of those extended subsidies, so that healthcare becomes dramatically more expensive for lots of people starting next year. And so Democrats feel like healthcare is very much a winning issue for them in the court of public opinion. Again, especially on a situation where you will see people almost surely lose their healthcare coverage because they simply won't be able to afford it anymore. So they feel like this is a good ground for them to kind of stake their claim against the Trump administration.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems like conversely, the Republicans are saying, this is our plan we put forward. Let's do the negotiations, during the period when the spending plan is enacted, and over the course of several weeks until the spending plan would eventually run out. But it seems like they want to try to do negotiations when the situation isn't as pressurized, I guess, right?
Right. And I think the Democrats are saying, no, let's settle this now, right? Like what for their position, I think they feel like they probably have more leverage right now than just kicking the can down the road another month or whatever proposal the Republicans might have. So it's really both sides trying to maximize whatever leverage they have in this conflict.
Now, this next question is kind of admittedly a super niche question, but of course here in the Carolinas, it's pretty important considering we just discussed the 1-year anniversary of Helene and how we've got Western North Carolina that's just now finally starting to bounce back. They want folks to come up for the fall season, which is supposed to be, of course, their big tourism spot. And we know that parks, national parks, the Blue Ridge Parkway itself is a big element of that. Is the potential there for those parks or even the parkway to close down under a government shutdown there?
Yes, actually, national parks, and it varies park to park, those are the sorts of things that close. And, people might just face a closed gate when they're going to a national park, which can obviously be very frustrating. We should mention, for the benefit of those in Western North Carolina, that there is all sorts of beautiful areas you can see that are state parks and not parkland at all, so that people should not be deterred from the all-important tourism, I think, in this season especially. But yeah, certainly, I know there's a number of national parks out there I myself have visited and enjoyed that might well be at the risk for shutdowns.
Yeah. It's an interesting element. I don't know if folks have maybe thought about too much until just now as we've been discussing this, with the exception, of course, the folks who are, directly staking their livelihoods on these parks.
I'm sure the ones in Western North Carolina, have been thinking about it. And I have been doing some reading, and that's not something I came across, but that's probably because most people just aren't thinking about that. But it's a really important issue for our state and the part of our state that is still, reeling from last year's disaster.
Yeah. We just have a couple moments left here on Live Impact. Is there anything you'd like to leave our viewers with before we wrap things up? And of course, start watching the clock and start watching what goes on in Congress tonight.
Yeah, no, I mean, hope that this gets resolved. I mean, it's always better not to have our government shut down than otherwise. But for most viewers who do not directly depend on the federal government for their income, it's probably going to be okay. But if this does get drawn out, that it could really start to have some negative impacts affecting almost all of us.
Yeah. All right. Stephen Green, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate and enjoyed your insights. And of course, folks at home watching here, we'll keep an eye on the clock. Shutdown potentially coming in 8 hours, 1 minute, and 31 seconds.